Winter evenings in Philadelphia grow dark early. As snow began to dance along the tree-lined paths of the upscale Rittenhouse Square neighborhood, preparations for a family meeting were underway at the Hamilton mansion. "Everyone, I have wonderful news," Elizabeth Hamilton clapped her hands in the living room, drawing her family's attention. Her voice carried the refined resonance characteristic of the upper class. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, and her cashmere twin set subtly complemented her pearl necklace. "Bradley has received the Young Leader Award from the Real Estate Association. Now everyone in the family has been honored in some way." Richard, the head of the family, nodded with satisfaction from his position on the expensive leather sofa. Hamilton Real Estate was a prestigious firm that had been in Philadelphia for 4 generations. "Wonderful. Thank you for upholding the Hamilton family tradition." The third son, Bradley, appeared humble, though his expression clearly revealed his pride. The eldest son Jeffrey and second son Michael patted his shoulder, while the eldest daughter Caroline and second daughter Patricia cheered. Sitting quietly in the corner of the room was Meredith, the fifth of 6 siblings. In this house, she was treated almost like an outsider. "Meredith, don't you have anything to say?" Her mother directed a cold gaze at her. "Congratulations, Brad," Meredith said softly. "I can't hear you," Elizabeth said with displeasure. "Congratulations, Bradley," Meredith repeated, raising her voice slightly. "Really, when will you ever learn the basics of social etiquette?" Elizabeth sighed. "Perhaps my teaching was inadequate." Richard, without even looking at his daughter, asked, what was it again? That curator job at the Catherine Museum still going on?" "It's the Meredith Museum," Meredith quietly corrected. "Yes, I've been promoted to head curator." Richard's voice contained not a trace of interest. "You exhibit the history of monarchy, or something like that, don't you?" "It's contemporary art," Meredith said. "Next month I'm organizing a special exhibition featuring up-and-coming artists." No one was listening to her words. Bradley had begun talking about his promotion, and the entire family was engrossed in his story. Meredith shifted her gaze to the window as she listened to their conversation. The snow was beginning to fall more heavily. 10 years ago, when invitations to Jeffrey's wedding were sent to the entire family, only Meredith's was misdelivered. She wasn't invited to Michael's, Caroline's, or Bradley's weddings either. And what hurt the most was not being invited even to her parents' 35th anniversary party. "Well then, let's take a commemorative photo," Elizabeth stood up. "The whole family?" "Me too?" Meredith asked reflexively. An awkward silence fell. "Yes, of course," Elizabeth reluctantly said. "But could you change out of that, what do you call it? Artistic outfit, into something more proper?" Meredith looked down at her simple black pantsuit. She had come directly from work at the museum, so she wasn't wearing the flashy designer clothes her family preferred. "I'm fine just as I am." As stubborn as ever, Elizabeth clicked her tongue softly. "The photos will go to the press, you know. As heirs of Hamilton Real Estate." "I am not an heir," Meredith said in a quiet but firm voice. "I work at a museum." "Not bad as a hobby," Elizabeth declared. "But someday you'll have to face reality." The photo session began, and Meredith was positioned slightly apart from the family circle. As the flashes went off, she tried to smile, but her expression remained somehow empty. After the photos were taken, the family seemed to forget about her again and returned to their own conversations. Meredith quietly left the living room. No one noticed her departure. Walking down the hallway, she took out her cell phone. There was a message from her best friend, Sophia. "How are the preparations for tomorrow's gallery opening?" "That handsome collector, James, said he's coming too." A genuine smile, one she never showed in this house, appeared on Meredith's face. She had found elsewhere what her family had never given her: her colleagues at the museum, her mentor Professor Walter, and James Morrison, the art enthusiast she had recently grown close to. The time spent with them was Meredith's true family time. As she headed toward the entrance, Meredith took a deep breath. Tomorrow would be the first day of the new special exhibition. And she had her third cafe date with James. Her life was much more fulfilling than her family imagined. She left the house without saying goodbye to anyone. "What do you feel about the placement of the ritual sculptures?" Meredith asked James, who stood in the center of the gallery. Her voice was filled with confidence and passion never displayed at the Hamilton mansion. The individual pieces express loneliness, but in this arrangement, a dialogue emerges, James Morrison answered as he slowly walked around the sculptures. Solitary entities coming together to create new meaning. It's almost as if this is what you wanted to express with this exhibition. Meredith smiled. You've seen right through me. 8 months had passed since their first encounter. James visited the museum almost weekly, exchanging opinions about Meredith's exhibitions. Eventually, these conversations extended to coffee outside the museum and then to dinners. James was a humble, gentle man. He always wore understated gray suits and spoke passionately about art. All Meredith knew about him was that he taught at a private art school and that he was an art collector. "How about dinner at my apartment tonight?" James suggested. "My cooking isn't anything special, but at least we can enjoy our conversation better than in a noisy restaurant." Meredith happily accepted. That night, she visited James's apartment in a converted factory building in Brooklyn. When he opened the door, Meredith gasped. The interior was simple, but the walls were adorned with remarkable works of art. They included not only famous artists' works but also pieces by talented but unknown young artists. "What a wonderful collection," she said. "Do you have a professional advisor?" James smiled, looking slightly embarrassed. "Actually, many of these were inherited from my father." As he led Meredith into the kitchen, he continued, "My father was a painter named William Morrison." Meredith stopped in her tracks. William Morrison? One of the most influential abstract expressionist painters of the 20th century, that William Morrison. James nodded slightly as he chopped carrots. "Yes, he's my father. But please don't make a big deal of it. I didn't want to live in my father's shadow, so I chose to teach art rather than paint." That night, they talked until the early hours. James revealed that as the son of a renowned artist, he had always lived in his father's shadow. Meredith confessed her experience of being misunderstood by her family and constantly treated as the lesser child. "We have opposite problems," James said. "I've been trying to escape my father's fame, while you've been trying to gain recognition from your family." "I've given up now," Meredith said quietly. "Trying to get my family to understand my worth is like waiting for rain in a desert." From that night on, their relationship deepened. James offered constructive opinions on Meredith's exhibitions, and Meredith listened to his educational philosophy. They shared a common passion for art while respecting each other's individuality and independence. 2 years after their relationship began, on an autumn evening, James took Meredith to the rooftop terrace of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. With the sunset-illuminated cityscape as a backdrop, he got down on one knee. "Meredith Hamilton, will you marry me? I'm drawn to your passion for art, your strength, and your kindness. I want to walk through life with you." Tears welled up in Meredith's eyes. "Yes, gladly." That night, they celebrated with James's friends. But on the way home, Meredith's expression clouded. "Is something bothering you?" James asked. She sighed deeply. "It's about my family." "Should I tell them?" "I wasn't invited to my siblings' weddings. I wasn't even invited to my parents' anniversary party. Should I still invite them?" James took her hand. "That's your decision to make. But remember this, the wedding is our day. You don't need to invite people who have hurt you." A few days later, Meredith summoned her courage and called her parents. Her mother's cold voice came through the receiver. "Well, Meredith. This is unusual. Is something wrong?" "Mom, I'm engaged," Meredith said. "He's a wonderful person. His name is James Morrison, and he teaches at an art school." On the other end of the line, her mother's tone changed. Morrison? What family is he from? Is that important? Meredith protested. He's kind, considerate. Oh, so he's penniless? Elizabeth's voice turned icy cold. I have no interest in your marriage. Don't embarrass the family. Mom, why are you treating me like this? Richard. Elizabeth called for her husband on the other end of the phone. Your daughter has something she wants to tell you. The phone was passed to her father. Meredith? What's happened? Dad, I'm getting married. Richard's voice showed no interest. And what does he do? He's a professor at an art school. His name is? Art again, her father interrupted. Listen, Meredith. You're a disgrace to the family line. You don't understand our social standing. Don't come to such a ceremony. Don't further tarnish the Hamilton name. The phone disconnected. Meredith couldn't move for a while. Tears ran down her cheeks. Over the next few days, she tried to contact her siblings as well. But the results were the same. Jeffrey and Caroline didn't answer her calls. Michael simply said congratulations in a businesslike manner before quickly hanging up. Bradley made excuses about being busy, and Patricia advised her to follow what our parents say. Meredith revealed everything to James in his apartment. They don't think of me as family. Even with blood ties, there's no affection. James embraced her. True family isn't about blood relations, but about people who love and support you. Let's invite your real family to our wedding, the people you've chosen. Meredith smiled through her tears. Yes. I want to ask Sophia to be my maid of honor. And I'd like Professor Walter to walk me down the aisle. That's a wonderful idea, James kissed her hand. We're going to create a new family. A true family based on love and respect. The glass atrium of the Philadelphia Center for Contemporary Art was bathed in the soft light of dusk. White lanterns entwined with green leaves cast a quiet magic over the space. About 80 guests were seated on either side of the aisle leading to the central altar. Meredith gazed at her reflection in the dressing room mirror. Her silk wedding dress, simple yet elegant, fit her slender frame perfectly. Her hair was loosely styled up, adorned with small wildflowers. Ready? Sophia smiled, her pale blue dress perfectly suited to her role as maid of honor. I'm a little nervous, Meredith answered honestly. Of course, Sophia squeezed her hand. But it's your special day. You've worked hard for this. There was a knock at the door, and Professor Walter appeared. The kind-eyed man was Meredith's first art history professor and had been her mentor since she began working at the museum. Meredith, you look beautiful today, the professor said with emotion. I feel deeply honored to walk you down the aisle. Professor Walter, Meredith placed her hand on his arm. Thank you for doing what a real father should do. Blood doesn't determine family, the professor said gently. Family consists of the people you choose, and who choose you. The music began, announcing the start of the ceremony. Sophia was the first to walk down the aisle, followed by Meredith on Professor Walter's arm. At the altar, James was waiting. His face lit up the moment his eyes found Meredith. Beside him stood his best friend, Marcus, as best man. The attendance was small, but it included only those who truly loved and supported the couple. Meredith's colleagues, James's students, and the network of friendships they had built over the years. Though there were no blood relations, there was certainly a family present. The ceremony was warm and moving. The couple added their own words to the traditional vows. I met you through art and found truth and beauty in you, Meredith said. You taught me the true meaning of family. From today, we begin the story of our new family. James returned equally heartfelt words. I am impressed every day by your strength and kindness. Whatever path you choose in life from now on, I will always be by your side. The reception after the ceremony was held in the art gallery's spacious hall. Professor Walter gave a touching speech, and Sophia recounted the history of her friendship with Meredith. It was an evening wrapped in laughter, tears, and warm congratulations. Among James's invited guests were many prominent figures in the art world. Despite his conscious avoidance of his father's fame, the Morrison family had extensive connections, and many people held him in high regard. Unexpectedly, the ceremony was featured in local society news. Thanks to James's family connections, a photographer had been permitted to take a few pictures. The next day, a large headline appeared in the Philadelphia Society pages. James, son of Art World dynasty William Morrison, marries museum curator Meredith Hamilton. The article detailed both of their careers, particularly referring to James as the Prince of the Art World. It mentioned the Morrison family's vast wealth and philanthropy, as well as the foundation James himself had established to support young artists. As for Meredith, it noted her rapidly growing reputation in Philadelphia's contemporary art scene and her innovative exhibition methods. The article concluded by reporting that the couple planned to co-found a new art foundation. That evening, in the living room of the Hamilton mansion, Elizabeth sat on the sofa, reading the article over and over again. In the accompanying photo, Meredith and James were captured smiling happily. "I can't believe it," Elizabeth said in a trembling voice. Meredith, with the Morrison family. Richard took the newspaper from his wife almost forcefully. The son of William Morrison? That tycoon. One of New York's wealthiest families, Elizabeth said. The Morrison Foundation donates millions of dollars every year. And it seems James himself holds a professorship at Princeton University. Richard's face had turned pale. Why didn't she say anything? She did, Caroline said quietly. She was standing in the corner of the room, listening to her family's conversation. She tried to tell us about her engagement. But none of us would listen. A heavy silence fell over the room. We must repair the relationship immediately, Richard decided. A connection between the Hamilton and Morrison families would be extremely valuable for our business. But first, where will they live? Elizabeth suddenly looked worried. New York? Philadelphia. After contemplating, Richard declared, "Family meeting." Minutes later, all 5 siblings were gathered in the living room. "You understand the situation," Richard said sternly. "We need to repair our relationship with Meredith. The fact that she is now a member of the Morrison family presents a great opportunity for us." "But how?" Bradley asked. "None of us were invited to her wedding." "Where is her new home?" Richard inquired. Patricia answered, "I heard she bought a new house in the Little House district. They plan to live there after marriage." "Good, we'll visit first thing tomorrow morning," Richard decided. "We'll bring the finest gifts. We mustn't let her think that she doesn't value family." "We're the ones who didn't value her," Caroline said quietly. But her words were ignored in the family's excitement. That night, the Hamilton house was filled with energy for the first time in a long while. However, it wasn't from love or regret, but from anticipation of new social and economic connections. Everyone in the family began preparing for the next morning's visit. No one was really thinking about Meredith. Their minds were only occupied with the wealth and influence of the Morrison family. As morning light poured over the kitchen counter, Meredith and James were drinking coffee and making plans for the first day of their married life. The afterglow of the previous day's wedding created a comfortable intimacy between them. "I'd like to complete the proposal for the Art Foundation by the end of this week," Meredith said while jotting something down in her notebook. "Oh, and Robert Campbell contacted me," James said. "He wants to host a special exhibition for young artists at his gallery." Suddenly, the doorbell rang loudly. The two looked at each other in surprise. Who could that be? Meredith frowned. "We weren't expecting anyone today." James went to the door and looked through the peephole. His expression froze for a moment. "Mel, it's your family," he said quietly. "Your parents and all 5 siblings." The color drained from Meredith's face. "What?" Why would they? The doorbell rang again, longer and more insistently this time. What do you want to do? James asked. We could ignore them. Meredith took a deep breath. No. I'll have to face them sooner or later. She approached the door and slowly opened it. There stood the entire Hamilton family, bearing gifts wrapped in luxury brand paper and wearing awkward smiles. Meredith, my dear daughter. Elizabeth stepped forward with open arms. Tears welled in her eyes. Congratulations. I can't tell you how sad we were to miss such an important day. Meredith stepped back, avoiding her mother's embrace. Why are you here? Her voice was cold, suppressing emotion. We came to celebrate your happiness. Elizabeth's voice was sweet and unnatural. We've been worried about you all this time. Richard stepped forward. Won't you let us in? We'd like to talk. After a long hesitation, Meredith quietly moved aside. Please come in. The Hamiltons entered the living room with their lavish gifts. James brought coffee and muffins from the kitchen. His movements showed caution, and he made sure to stay close to Meredith. What a lovely home. Elizabeth looked around the living room. It really reflects your taste. Thank you. Meredith's response was short and formal. Meredith, Richard cleared his throat. Yesterday's wedding must have been wonderful. Unfortunately, we weren't invited. I didn't invite you, Meredith quietly corrected him. Just as I wasn't invited to my siblings' weddings. An awkward silence fell. That was a misunderstanding, Richard said. Your invitations must have been lost at the post office. We were worried. Meredith scoffed. 5 times in a row? For all my siblings' weddings and your 35th anniversary party? That's a miraculous postal accident. Meredith, let's put the past behind us, Elizabeth spoke as if seeking reconciliation. We're family. Family supports each other in difficult times. James sat on the armrest of the sofa and placed his hand on Meredith's shoulder. He casually took out his smartphone and activated a recording app. Support each other? Meredith said in a trembling voice. You've never once supported me. That's not true. Elizabeth raised her voice. We've always encouraged your paintings, your museum work. Mom, I'm a museum curator. I don't paint, Meredith said tiredly. Yes, of course, Elizabeth said hastily. Your curator work, it's wonderful. Since you were a child, I've always praised your artistic sense. Meredith just shook her head, feeling an emptiness beyond words. Jeffrey, the eldest son, cleared his throat. We've always been thinking about you. We just weren't good at showing it. That's right, Caroline chimed in. We were watching from afar as you found your way and became happy. One by one, the siblings began to speak of memories that never existed, tales of family trips and words of encouragement. Meredith just listened in silence. Suddenly, Richard said excitedly, we were really surprised when we saw the news last night. You? James's eyes flashed sharply. Which news? Richard fumbled with his words for a moment. Well, about the wedding. It was in the society pages. Our wedding was in last night's news? James asked deliberately. When was it broadcast? No, in the newspaper, Richard said anxiously. In the society column. James took out his smartphone. I was recording, he said before playing back the recording. We were really surprised when we saw the news last night. You? Richard's voice echoed in the room. Stopping the recording, James said quietly, you only came after finding out who Meredith married, didn't you? A heavy silence fell on the room. Meredith stood up and walked toward the window. Her body trembled with anger and sadness. You only found value in me after learning who James is, she turned and said. You just wanted a connection to the Morrison family, didn't you? That's not true. Elizabeth desperately denied. We just No more lies, Meredith's voice had regained its calmness. Tell the truth. Why did you really come? Silence fell over the room again. Finally, Richard dropped his shoulders as if in surrender. Hamilton Real Estate is in a difficult situation, he admitted. Last year's economic downturn caused several major projects to fail. We need support. You want money? Meredith's voice revealed her disbelief. Collaboration, Richard corrected. A business relationship. A connection with the Morrison family could greatly improve our situation. Meredith laughed coldly. After calling me the family's disgrace for years, now you want to use me? Elizabeth began to cry. But how calculated those tears were was now obvious to Meredith. Get out, Meredith said quietly but firmly. And don't come back. Meredith, reconsider, Bradley said anxiously. We're family. No, Meredith shook her head. Family is a relationship of mutual respect and support. You may be my blood relatives, but you're not my family. After seeing the Hamiltons out, she stood in the middle of the living room. A wave of emotions overwhelmed her, and tears quietly ran down her cheeks. They weren't tears of sadness, but of release from a burden she had carried for a long time. James quietly approached her and gently embraced her. Are you okay? Meredith took a deep breath. Yes, surprisingly okay. I feel like chains I've carried for over 10 years have finally been removed. The light streaming through the window bathed them in gold. In that moment, something changed. The uncertainty she had felt for years, the sense that something was missing in her, disappeared. For years, I thought there was something lacking in me, Meredith said quietly. I thought my parents didn't acknowledge me because I had no value. But that wasn't it. James touched her cheek. You lack nothing. Rather, it was they who lacked the capacity to love. Meredith gazed at the expensive gifts the Hamilton family had left scattered on the table. These are all meaningless. Let's donate them all, James suggested. As the first step for a foundation to support young artists. Meredith smiled. That's a wonderful idea. Let's transform their calculated gifts into support for genuine talent. That afternoon, the two organized the Hamilton family's gifts and developed plans for their new art foundation. A new purpose was blossoming in Meredith's heart. She wished to create an environment where young artists could develop their talents without doubting their worth, as she had. At dusk, the phone rang. Sophia's name was displayed on the screen. Are you ready for your honeymoon? Sophia's cheerful voice rang out. Yes, everything's going well, Meredith answered. Our flight to Italy is tomorrow evening. By the way, I've received lots of messages from people who couldn't make it to the party yesterday. Everyone is congratulating you both. Meredith smiled. Thank you, Sophia. For being my real family. After hanging up, Meredith joined James on the terrace. The sunset outlined the city in gold, as if promising a new beginning. I misunderstood the meaning of the word family for a long time, Meredith said quietly. You don't become family just through blood ties. People who cherish and support each other, that's what true family is. And we will create our own family, James took her hand. A true family based on love and respect. A year later, Meredith's email inbox was filled with unread messages from the Hamilton family. She saved them all in a folder labeled Ghosts of the Past, without opening any of them. Hamilton Real Estate had filed for bankruptcy, and her siblings were each in dire straits. Meanwhile, the Morrison Hamilton Art Foundation was thriving, providing opportunities to many talented young people. A warm, hopeful atmosphere filled the baby's room as Meredith and James awaited the arrival of their child. Looking down at the city from her office window, Meredith smiled quietly. She had finally found her own worth and built a true family. It was a bond formed not by the chance of blood relation, but by conscious choice and love.